In the midst of the Israel-Hamas conflict, the European Union's diplomatic finesse seems to have vanished. Just as Israel faces escalating challenges, the EU has chosen this moment to stir the pot. Their meddling comes off as a blend of schooling and internal bickering, adding yet another layer of complexity to an already intense situation. Hi and welcome, I'm your host Vedika. Let's begin. EU's top diplomat Josep Borell has stepped into the limelight. Borell boldly declared Israel's actions in Gaza as potential breaches of international law. According to Mr. Borell, Israel's attempts at self-defense should apparently conform to the Manual of International Law, a document seemingly decipherable only by the EU's esteemed diplomats. In a virtual meeting of EU foreign ministers, Borell passionately enlightened his colleagues about the grave sins of Israel, citing alleged violations involving water, electricity, and even food supplies. Reportedly, Borell stressed, the right for self-defense has to be done within international law. He added, some of the actions by Israel, like cutting water, cutting electricity, cutting food, to a mass of civilian people, is against international law. So yes, there are some actions that are not in accordance with international law. In the end, he extended his support for giving aid to Palestine, stressing at this moment the casualties in Gaza are increasing. The humanitarian situation is dire. We will have to support more, not less, he said. So Borell has generously extended his benevolent support to Palestine. How noble! Despite the perplexing logic, he advocated for more aid, emphasizing the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. It's a marvel how these diplomats can balance on the tightrope of irony, advocating for international law while perhaps conveniently overlooking the evil within the one they have sympathy for. Borell's statements, while astounding, are unfortunately not surprising given the EU's historical stance on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The EU, in line with its consistent rhetoric, once again called for respect for international law and restraint from all sides. This position, while seemingly principled, lacks teeth, especially when it comes to scrutinizing Palestine's actions. The EU's tendency to avoid intensifying scrutiny on Palestine is not an isolated occurrence. Even the Biden administration, while generally refraining from criticizing Israel's actions, has extended military assistance, recognizing Israel's right to defend its territory. In this context, the fervor with which the EU fights for Palestine is intriguing. Despite the suspension announcement of humanitarian aid due to Gaza's attacks, the EU's swift reversal after protests from member states Ireland, Spain, and Luxembourg raises questions about the EU's decision-making process. The EU's clarification emphasizing an urgent review of development aid to prevent indirect funding of terrorist organizations like Hamas highlights the convoluted nature of their approach. The issue persists, aid flows into Palestine, yet its utilization remains questionable. Rather than fostering development and stability, the funds seemingly find their way into perpetuating conflicts with Israel. This situation raises concerns about accountability and the effectiveness of aid distribution mechanisms. The EU's conflicting stance on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict raises serious doubts about its priorities. While nations like Germany and Italy worry about their citizens held captive by Hamas, EU's Borell lectures Israel on international law. This stark contradiction is not only appalling, but also feels like a betrayal. Brussels' actions, instead of showing solidarity, appear as a form of backstabbing, if not outright ditching. The EU's lack of consistency and unity in its approach casts a shadow on its credibility and questions the sincerity of its support for Israel during this challenging time.